They said she was lucky, said a girl like her, dark-skinned, raised in a 2-bedroom walk-up in East Atlanta, daughter of a seamstress and a man who disappeared before her 3rd birthday, had no business walking beside a man like Charles Whitmore III. But love don't follow no pedigree. She met him at a fundraiser gala where she was serving champagne, not sipping it. He was drawn to her laugh, full, rich, like church choir on a good Sunday. She didn't flirt, didn't try. That's what caught him. The way she looked him dead in the eye when she spoke, like she didn't care who his daddy was. 3 months later, she had a ring. 6 months after that, she was standing in front of a mansion with iron gates tall enough to block out the sun. Whitmore Estate, built in 1882. Marble floors, hand-painted ceilings, and a portrait of every ancestor that ever owned land or people. She walked into that mansion carrying her dignity like a crown, but they only saw her skin, not her soul. The first time his mother, Evelyn Whitmore, laid eyes on her, she didn't smile. She examined her like a gemstone at an auction, eyes trailing over her braids, her cocoa brown skin, her posture. And then, that woman said the one thing that cracked the air. She's unexpected. Charles has always had a heart for charity work. Charity, that's what she called her. Not daughter-in-law, not woman, not even guest. Just a cause. But my baby didn't flinch. No tears, no tremble. She smiled the kind of smile that don't reach the eyes and said, "Well, it's good to know who you are right away, Evelyn. I prefer my racism front-facing." That shut the room cold. And yet, she stayed. For him. For love. For the dream. But baby, some dreams come with ghosts. And that house? It wasn't done haunting her yet. Because that night, while the staff cleared the table and the chandelier dimmed, she overheard a voice on the phone. "Evelyn, she won't last. That girl doesn't understand this world. Give it a year. Then we can fix his mistake." My heart aches remembering it. But that was just the beginning. 3 weeks into living at Whitmore Estate, she started noticing patterns. Dinner always served sharp at 7. Wine only poured if Evelyn approved. Her outfits, questioned. Her tone, policed. Her silence, interpreted as ignorance. Her words, dismissed as sass. And yet, she smiled. Not out of fear, but resistance. She was raised on resilience, baby. Learned early how to turn a side-eye into a stepping stone. But one stormy night, while Charles was out on business, she roamed the West Wing. The part of the house, Evelyn said, was under restoration. Locked doors, covered furniture, no footsteps but her own, until she came across a portrait, a woman in emerald silk, holding a golden locket. The plaque read, Margaret Whitmore, 1904. But it wasn't the name that caught her breath. It was the face. Because that woman, she had skin the shade of warm honey, and lips just like hers. And baby, that ain't no coincidence. She touched the frame and something shifted. A tiny click. The wall groaned, and the portrait swung open like a secret passage. Behind it, a box, dusty, wooden, carved initials, M.W. Inside, letters, yellowed with time. Love letters, written to a woman named Margaret, from someone named L.J. "They will never accept us, my love, but I'll choose you in every lifetime." And in the corner of one, tucked like a prayer, was a photograph. A black man, tall and proud, holding hands with the same woman from the portrait, her smile radiant, her hair in thick soft curls, and beside them, a baby, mixed, brown-skinned, eyes like firelight. And in that moment, she knew this family had buried its truths, painted over bloodlines, rewritten history. She wasn't the first black woman in that mansion. But Evelyn, she made sure no one remembered. So what did that mean? About the inheritance? The legacy? The empire Charles was meant to inherit? And why was that box locked away? She clutched the photo to her chest, heart pounding like war drums. Because Evelyn Whitmore didn't just hate her for her skin. She hated her because she was a mirror of a truth she tried to erase. But baby, truth don't stay buried, especially not when it's knocking on golden doors. And just as she turned to hide the box, she heard a voice behind her. You weren't supposed to find that. She turned slow, photo still in hand, and there she was. Evelyn Whitmore, wrapped in a silk robe the color of ash, standing like a ghost in the doorway, wine glass half full, judgment spilling from her eyes. I see curiosity runs in your community. Her voice was velvet dipped in venom. But my baby didn't back down. She held that photo like armor. Why was it hidden? Evelyn stepped forward, smooth and slow, like danger in heels. Because Margaret's shame nearly destroyed this family. That affair almost cost us everything. That was love, she said, voice steady. No, it was foolishness, and we corrected it. There it was. We corrected it. 4 words that carried the weight of graves. Evelyn plucked the photo from her hands with 2 fingers, like it was dirt on crystal. That child never carried the Whitmore name. We don't acknowledge illegitimate lines, but my baby ain't Blink. I guess that's why you hate me so much, she said. Because I remind you that your bloodline ain't as pure as you pretend. That woman froze, just for a second. Just enough. And then, with the coldness only a rich racist can wear so elegantly, Evelyn whispered, "You are nothing but my son's rebellion. A season. A curiosity. You will not last." And then she smiled, not with joy, but with certainty. "You'll leave eventually. They all do. But oh, Aunt Grace wants you to remember something. Some roots don't break. They burrow deep." She walked out that room not with fear, but with purpose. Because now she had a secret Evelyn couldn't scrub away. Proof, truth, blood. And truth, it has a way of finding its moment. 2 days later, she met with a lawyer. Quietly, carefully. And baby, what they found? Let's just say, inheritance laws in Georgia ain't as tidy as Evelyn hoped. But before she could act, before she could even think to show Charles, she found something even worse. A set of documents, hidden in the back of Evelyn's study drawer. Bank transfers, to a name she'd never heard before. Lucinda James, $50,000 every quarter. Memo line, silence. And beneath the last one, a copy of a birth certificate. Not hers. Not Margaret's baby. Another child. Another name. Born in 1993. Mother, Lucinda James. Father, Charles Whitmore Jr. That's right, baby. Evelyn's precious, perfect husband had another child. And Evelyn, she'd been paying to keep it secret. But secrets got a smell when they rot long enough. And this one, it was about to rise. Because just then, the study door creaked open, and Charles walked in. "Why are you going through my mother's files?" She didn't flinch when Charles asked. Didn't stammer. Didn't fold. She looked that man square in the eyes, the same eyes she once called home, and said, "Because your mother's lies are heavier than this house." He laughed, nervous, the kind of laugh men do when they about to drown, but still acting like they can swim. "What are you talking about?" She handed him the paper, the birth certificate, the bank slips, the truth, and she watched his face shift. Not denial, not anger, something quieter. Recognition. "You knew," she whispered. Charles sat down slow, the study chair creaking like it couldn't hold the weight of what was coming. "I was 13 when I overheard them fighting. I didn't understand it all back then. Just that Dad had a son no one was allowed to speak of, and that Mom paid to make it disappear." Her heart sank, not because he knew, but because he never told her. "You let me walk into this family blind. I didn't think it mattered. It matters when you're the only black woman at a table full of lies." Her voice cracked like thunder on marble floors. And still, Charles sat in silence. He'd never had to fight to be heard in that house, never had to carry his identity like armor. She did, every damn day. "I need to meet him," she said. "Your brother. If he's alive, he deserves to know." Charles stood, voice tight, defensive. "You don't know what you're walking into. That world, our world, isn't safe for outsiders." She stepped forward, fire in her spine. "Then maybe it's time to change what our world means." That night, she didn't sleep beside him. She laid in the guest room, clutching the photo of Margaret and LJ, tracing the edges like scripture. History had been buried, painted over, paid off. But truth? Truth was rising through the cracks in the floorboards. The next morning, she made a call. Found Lucinda James in Birmingham. A soft voice answered, "This is Lucinda." And when she introduced herself, the line went dead silent. Then, You need to come. Now. Before Evelyn finds out you called. And that's how it began. A train ride. A small house on a quiet street. A woman with eyes full of grief and fists full of truth. Lucinda opened the door slow, looked her up and down, then said the words that would echo for years. You look just like her. The one he truly loved before Evelyn ruined it all. She didn't know who she meant yet. Not exactly, but baby. She was about to find out, because in Lucinda's living room, in a shoebox full of letters and old photographs, she found a picture of Margaret, and standing beside her, arm around her waist, was Evelyn Whitmore, smiling like a sister. That photo shook her. Evelyn Whitmore, young, radiant, standing shoulder to shoulder with Margaret. Same dress, same pearls, same blood. They were sisters? She asked, voice trembling. Lucinda nodded slow, like it pained her to confirm. Same father. Different mothers. Margaret's mama was the maid. Ah, there it was. The house always hides its sins in the help. Margaret had been the family secret. Loved in shadows, pushed to the edges, never claimed in public. But inside the Whitmore home, she and Evelyn were raised under the same roof, until Margaret fell in love with L.J., a black man. Lucinda pulled out another letter, faded ink, but the pain still fresh. Evelyn told their father, said Margaret was ruining the family name. What followed was swift. Margaret was sent away. L.J. disappeared. The baby, mixed beautiful, was raised in secret, then vanished from the family ledger altogether. Evelyn erased her own sister, Lucinda whispered, to preserve a name that never loved her back. She sat there in silence, not from shock, but sorrow, because now it all made sense. The glares, the condescension, the charity case comments. Evelyn didn't just hate her because she was black. She hated her because she looked like the ghost of the sister she betrayed. Because when her son brought home a woman with dark skin and pride in her spine, it was like Margaret had walked back into that mansion, alive, unbending, unforgiven. Lucinda touched her hand gently. Evelyn will destroy you before she lets you carry this truth forward. But baby, my girl didn't scare easy. She stood up, chin high. Then she better try hard, because I'm done playing guest in a house my blood helped build. She left that little house with a mission, and 3 days later she held a family meeting, right in the marble foyer of Whitmore Estate. Evelyn, Charles, the lawyers, and in her hand, the photo, the letters, the birth certificates. She laid it all bare, and for the first time, Evelyn lost her words, but only for a second. You think digging up bones makes you family? Evelyn hissed. You are a mistake. No, she said, calm as stone. I'm the correction. And before Evelyn could speak again, the lawyer cleared his throat. There's something else. We need to discuss the trust revision Charles Sr. made before he died. Evelyn turned, pale, trembling. He never changed anything. The lawyer looked her dead in the face. Yes, he did. And it names Margaret's heir as a beneficiary. Silence dropped like a thunderclap. And just like that, the girl Evelyn called Charity was now entitled to the same inheritance as Charles. Baby, that's what we call divine reversal. But don't you rest yet, because later that night, a car pulled up to the estate, and out stepped a man with eyes like hers, Lucinda's son, Charles's half-brother. And the first thing he said, so this is the house that tried to erase us. His name was Elijah, tall, quiet, skin deep like carved mahogany, voice low, but firm. And when he stepped into Whitmore Estate, the air changed. The walls remembered. He didn't come for revenge or riches. He came for answers, and maybe peace. She led him through the halls, stopping under portraits of men who never would have claimed him. And yet, he was their echo, their blood. Charles stood by the staircase, watching him like a man watching his own reflection through cracked glass. I didn't know, Charles said. You didn't ask, Elijah replied. Simple, cold, true. Evelyn refused to come down, said she was resting. But truth is, she was hiding, because the past had come knocking. And this time, it brought receipts. That night, the three of them sat in the study, her, Charles, and Elijah. Old letters spread out like evidence. Every truth they weren't supposed to know, laid bare. Charles looked at her. Really looked. You found all this. You brought him here. You forced us to see it. She didn't say thank you. Didn't smile. She just said, I did what your mother never had the courage to do. Elijah turned to her then. So, what now? We burn it all down? But no, baby. She had a better plan. We take our place. We build what they tried to bury. Power don't always scream. Sometimes it speaks soft, clear, unshaken. A week later, she filed the paperwork, reclaiming the heir rights, claiming her portion, establishing a foundation in Margaret's name, scholarships for black girls with big dreams and no legacy behind them. And Charles, he gave her the company's financials, the empire Evelyn thought she'd guard with iron fists. I want you to run it, he said. You see what no one else does. But she hesitated. Are you asking me because I'm capable, or because you feel guilty? He looked at her long, heart open. Because you're the only one strong enough to make it honest. Still, she needed time. Because power handed over isn't always power earned. And somewhere in her gut, something didn't feel right. Later that night, walking through the rose garden, she found Evelyn, sitting, waiting, like a vulture in velvet. Enjoy your victory, Evelyn said without looking up. But don't get comfortable. Men like Charles change their minds, especially when the world starts whispering. She didn't respond, but when she turned to leave, Evelyn called out, He asked you to run the empire. Yes, but what makes you think he won't ask someone else to run you? And in the dark, she wasn't sure if it was warning or a threat. They started calling her ma'am in the boardroom. Same mouths that once looked past her now hung on her every word. New suits, new staff, a new seat at the table. But baby, the air up there? Thin, cold, watching. She was the first black woman to ever lead a Whitmore Company division, let alone rebrand the whole empire. Marketing, community programs, digital transitions, all her ideas. And they worked. Profits soared. The press loved the story. From charity to chairwoman. But what they didn't write about, the way Evelyn's friends looked at her at galas, the passive-aggressive compliments. You've cleaned up so well. You don't sound like Atlanta at all. And always, Charles is lucky to have such a grounded woman. She wore her skin like silk, proud and unashamed. But even silk can stain from too many hands pulling. Behind the doors of that glass office, she often sat in silence, staring at her reflection, not questioning her worth, but wondering what the price of visibility was. Because now, every move she made wasn't just hers. It was for every little black girl watching, every woman who never got invited into the room. And yet, even with all her strength, all her pride, the silence between her and Charles had grown loud. Late nights, missed dinners, emails instead of kisses, distance, stretched like tightrope. She asked once, Are you proud of me? He said, Of course. Why wouldn't I be? But pride without presence? That ain't love, baby. That's performance. Then came the gala, their first public appearance since the transition. She wore deep green silk, an homage to Margaret's portrait. Her skin glowed like power remembered. But when she reached for Charles's hand on the red carpet, he let it hang a beat too long before taking it. That night, while everyone drank champagne and smiled for cameras, she slipped away, air too thick to breathe. And there, on the terrace, she saw it. Charles, leaning in, whispering to a woman in a silver gown, laughing, too familiar. The woman touched his chest gently, and in that moment, my baby's heart broke in the most dangerous way. Not from jealousy, but confirmation. Don't do this, she said, stepping forward. Charles turned, startled. Do what? That's Evelyn's lawyer's niece, the same one who called me too urban at the winter fundraiser. He sighed. We were just talking. But when she looked at the woman, that smile was too sharp, too satisfied. Talking doesn't leave fingerprints, she said. And your mother. She don't play games. She plans them. She walked away, back straight, eyes full of fire, because something wasn't adding up. And back at the mansion, waiting on her vanity, was a note with no name, handwritten. One sentence. If you value what you've built, check the prenup. She waited till the house was dark, waited till her anger settled into clarity, then pulled out the file cabinet Charles never bothered to lock. The prenup was there, crisp, legal, cold. She read it slow, each clause like a stone on her chest. At first glance, it looked simple, fair even, but deep in the fine print, an amendment, dated after the wedding, signed, without her knowledge. It said, "Any increase in company value traced to Whitmore family assets shall revert to Evelyn Whitmore in the event of divorce, nullity, or breach of spousal duty." Her hand shook. That meant every success she brought to the company, every campaign, every reform. If she left Charles, Evelyn would inherit the profit. Not her, not Elijah, not the foundation, just Evelyn. She sat in that chair till sunrise, numb, cold, burning inside, because this wasn't just betrayal. This was calculation. Evelyn hadn't lost. She'd waited for her to build the empire higher, so she could snatch it back without lifting a finger. She confronted Charles in the kitchen. He looked like sleep hadn't touched him either. "You changed the prenup." He didn't deny it, didn't lie. "It was my mother's condition for funding the acquisition. I didn't think—" "No," she said, voice hollow. "You didn't care." Silence. Then he whispered, "I never thought we'd end." Her eyes filled, but the tears didn't fall. "Maybe that's the problem. You never thought at all." And for the first time, she stepped back, away from the dream, away from him, not because she was weak, but because she finally saw what power without partnership really looked like. She packed one suitcase, left the rest. But as she was leaving, the butler, old, loyal, handed her an envelope, no name. Inside, a photo of Margaret and LJ. But this time, there was a note scrawled across the back. "The baby didn't die. Evelyn lied. Look in the cellar." And baby, that cellar had been locked for years. You want to know what she found down there? The Whitmore cellar was more than just bricks and wine. It was memory, air thick with mildew and old betrayal. Steps creaked like voices whispering through time. She held a flashlight tight in her hand, heart drumming steady, breath shallow. No one had been down there in decades, not since Charles's grandfather passed. The door protested but gave in. Dust danced in the beam of her light. Crates, cabinets, covered furniture like forgotten ghosts. She moved slow, careful, and then, behind an armoire, she saw it. A trunk, small, black, locked tight. But time had rusted the latch. One hard pull, and it gave. Inside, a wool baby blanket, a pair of shoes, and a folder, hospital records, adoption papers. And there it was again. That name, Margaret Whitmore. Infant placed under temporary state custody, later adopted by private family, records sealed by court order. But baby, that ain't the part that broke her. It was the letter, folded inside the blanket. Ink faded but clear enough. Margaret's handwriting. "Evelyn, if you have any mercy left, please let my son know who he is one day. If not for me, for his blood, for the truth, for what they stole from me. He deserves his name back." Her knees buckled, because now she knew. The baby wasn't buried. He was taken, erased, raised by strangers while Evelyn built her kingdom on silence. She ran back upstairs, heart in her throat. Elijah had to know. But when she got to her room, her suitcase was open, ransacked, and the letter, gone. Her heart pounded, breath hitched, and on the vanity, scrawled in lipstick like a threat, were 3 chilling words. "Stop digging, now." But oh baby, she wasn't built for surrender. She was built from women who held babies in shadows, who loved in secret, who lost everything, but still stood tall. This time she didn't call Charles. She called Elijah, told him everything. He didn't say much, just, "Send me the address, I'm coming." She hung up, ready to fight. But as she turned toward the door, she heard footsteps on the stairs, slow, deliberate, and then a voice behind the door. "Evelyn, open the door, dear. We need to talk. Just the two of us." She opened the door, not because she trusted her, but because she wasn't afraid anymore. Evelyn walked in like she still owned the house, still wore control like pearls. She sat without asking, sipped tea she didn't pour. "You've stirred quite the storm, haven't you?" She didn't answer. Evelyn sighed, the way only old money sighs, tired of being questioned. What you found in that cellar, it changes nothing. It changes everything. No one will believe you." She leaned forward then. "You really think I care about believe? This isn't about gossip. This is about justice." Evelyn's eyes flared for just a second. That child was nothing. A mistake Margaret made in her foolishness. That child is a man now, and he deserves to know who he is. Evelyn chuckled. "Even if it tears down everything Charles built? Everything you've been handed?" "I wasn't handed anything. I earned every inch." Evelyn stared at her, cold, calculating. Then, so quiet it was almost a whisper, "You're just like her." She stiffened. "Like Margaret?" Evelyn shook her head. "No, like the girl who ruined my father. My mother cried for weeks after she caught him with her, after he confessed that he loved her." "You mean Margaret's mother?" A nod, slow, painful. "He gave her more tenderness in secret than he ever gave us in the open. So yes, I hated her. I hated Margaret. And I hate you." There it was, the wound, the twisted love story Evelyn had buried beneath hatred and pearls. She stood up then. "Hate me all you want, but I'm not going anywhere. I'm not Margaret. I'm not afraid of you." Evelyn rose too, but this time, her hands trembled. "If you expose this, you'll burn the family down. Maybe it needs to burn, so something honest can grow." And just as Evelyn reached for the teacup, a knock, then a voice from the hall. "I believe I have a right to join this conversation." She turned toward the door, and there stood Elijah, holding the blanket, holding the letter, and behind him, a man in uniform, the judge who sealed the adoption records. Baby, the reckoning had finally come. Elijah stepped in slow, quiet as thunder before it rolls. The judge followed, face weathered by guilt and years. Evelyn froze. Her mask didn't crack. It shattered. "You have no right to be here," she hissed. The judge cleared his throat. "On the contrary, Mrs. Whitmore, I signed a lie, one I've regretted for 40 years. He handed her a document. Unsealed. Official. Legal. Elijah Whitmore, born Elijah James, grandson of Joseph Whitmore, son of Margaret Whitmore, and Leonard James. Evelyn stared at it like it was fire. "That name is earned, not inherited." "Then I guess I earned it the hard way," Elijah said, "by surviving what your pride destroyed." She turned to my baby, her voice trembling now. "Is this what you wanted? To disgrace us? To hand the empire to a bastard?" Before she could answer, Elijah did. "I don't want your empire. I want my mother's name, her truth, her place." My girl stepped forward then, solid, steady. "And I want what's mine too. Not just money, not even power. I want to rip the lies out of these walls." And that's when Evelyn laughed, soft, bitter. "You think you've won? This house, this family, it doesn't survive on truth. It survives on control." She walked out, but not before looking Elijah in the eye and saying, "You may carry our blood, but you'll never carry our name in peace." He didn't flinch. He just whispered, "Peace was never your gift to give." That night, the press got the letter. Anonymous drop. Every newspaper in Atlanta lit up with the scandal. Whitmore heir rediscovered after decades of secrecy. Empire built on lies? The board panicked. Stocks wobbled. Lawyers scrambled. But she? She stood calm in the fire. Because finally, everything was visible. No more pretending. No more performing. But just when she thought the storm was behind her, she got a call. From Charles. "We need to talk. It's about Elijah. And the will. I made a mistake." She didn't ask what. She just said, "Then say it to my face." But when she arrived at the office, Charles was gone. And on his desk, a folder, untitled. Inside, a second will, unsigned, but detailed. One that would have made Elijah the sole heir. Not her, not Charles, Elijah. And scribbled in Charles's handwriting at the bottom, "Forgive me." But that's not the worst part, baby. Because just then, her phone buzzed. A voicemail from the housekeeper. Shaky voice. Rushed. "Miss, Elijah, he's gone. Someone took him. There's blood on the driveway. Please, come quick." She drove like the world was ending. Didn't stop for lights. Didn't feel the tears till they soaked her collar. When she reached the estate, the air was thick, like breath before a scream. The butler stood by the front steps, hands shaking. "They came in a black car. Fast. No plates. Took him from the garden." Blood on the gravel. A dropped cufflink. Elijah's phone, cracked, and in the garden, a rose bush torn in half. Evelyn stood nearby, perfect, untouched. "What happened?" she demanded. Evelyn turned slow. "I should ask you. You're the one who dragged ghosts into this house." "Where is he?" "I don't know." But her eyes said otherwise, cold, unmoved. "Who did this?" she shouted. No answer. So she moved fast. To the security room. The guards tried to stop her. She stared them down. "Let me through, or I burn it all down." Inside the room, monitors buzzed, cameras frozen, footage from the past hour deleted. But one screen still worked, a hallway cam, grainy. She watched it, and there, in the corner, just for a second, was Evelyn's lawyer's niece, the same woman from the gala, the silver dress, carrying a phone, looking back over her shoulder. "She planned it," she whispered. "She's trying to wipe him out of the will before the ink dries." The butler slipped her a key. "There's a backup drive, hidden. Mr. Charles used to keep it for emergencies." She took it, plugged it into her laptop, waited, and what she saw next nearly broke her. Footage, Elijah, walking with Charles, arguing. Then Charles shoving something into Elijah's hand, a flash drive. Then Charles walking off, alone. Cut to another angle. Elijah waiting by the fountain. Then 2 men, masks, gloves, a struggle, blood, a scream cut short. They dragged him into the black car. But one of them took off his glove, and on his wrist, a Whitmore ring, custom, family only. She gasped, because only one other man in the family still wore that ring. Charles's uncle, Evelyn's brother, the one who lost his stake when Elijah's name was added back to the will. She clutched the laptop, mouth dry, eyes wet. They hadn't just erased Margaret's baby. They were trying to erase this one too, but not on her watch. Not this time, because if they wanted war, they just declared it. The house was locked down, police tape on the gate, press circling like hawks, and Evelyn, still hosting luncheons, still sipping tea, still pretending nothing happened. But that morning my baby walked into the mansion, not as a wife, not as a guest, but as a storm in heels. She marched right into Evelyn's parlor, tossed the flash drive onto the silver tray between them. "That's your brother on camera, orchestrating a kidnapping. If Elijah dies, you're next." Evelyn didn't blink. "I warned you. You thought you were clever. But clever don't mean powerful. Neither does old and bitter." Evelyn's hand trembled, barely, but she steadied it. "You forget. This house eats women like you." She leaned in, calm, sharp. "Then maybe I'm the one who'll burn it down from the inside." That night she met with the board behind closed doors. No more silence, no more diplomacy. She laid out the truth, the hidden adoption, the forged prenup, the inheritance theft, the attempted erasure of Elijah. They looked pale, uncomfortable, but facts don't care about pedigree. And then she dropped the final card. Charles's new will leaves everything to Elijah. The moment he's confirmed alive, Whitmore Holdings is no longer yours. Whispers, panic, phones buzzing. And still, she stood calm. Then came the call. A gas station 20 miles out. A boy had stumbled in, bleeding, mumbled the name, Margaret, then passed out. It was him, Elijah, alive. She drove like her soul was strapped to his heartbeat. When she reached the hospital, he was weak, but breathing. His voice rasped. "They said they'd make me disappear, like my mother, my grandmother." She held his hand. "Not this time. You're here, and you're not going anywhere." He looked at her with tears in his eyes. "Then neither are you." They made a plan, a press conference, public, final, expose it all. But baby, Evelyn had one last card to play. That night, as she packed her notes, her laptop, everything for the press, the power went out. A crash, shattered glass, and at her front door, a fire, set deliberately, and on the porch, a single envelope, no return name. Just a message scrawled across the front. "Silence is safer." Inside, a photo of her mother, one she'd never seen before, holding hands with a white man, and on the back, one line, "You're not who you think you are." Smoke still clung to her dress as she stared at the photo. Not from the fire, but from revelation. Her mother, the seamstress, the woman who raised her on cornbread, scripture, and quiet strength. holding hands with a man who looked just like Charles, not younger, older. Then it hit her. Charles's father. No, no. She dug through the drawer where her mother's Bible used to be, still carried it from house to house. Inside, folded tight between Psalm 91 and Proverbs 31, was a letter, never opened, addressed to her. Trembling, she read it, her mother's handwriting. My baby girl, there are things I couldn't tell you while I was breathing. Your father wasn't just a man who left. He was a man I was told to leave, paid to disappear from, because of who he was, and who his family was. You have Whitmore blood. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from what that means. She dropped the page. Her skin felt too small for her bones. Her voice, gone. I'm not just Margaret's heir, she whispered. I'm one of them too. Which meant she wasn't an outsider. She was a Whitmore by blood and birth. They tried to erase Elijah for being too black. They tried to silence her for being too bold. But now she was both inside and unbending. The press conference happened the next morning. Elijah stood by her side, bandaged but proud. She stepped to the podium, looked at the cameras, and began. This empire was built on lies, on stolen names, on buried babies and silenced women. But the truth's out now, and I'm not going back into the dark. She laid it all out. The erased lineage, the second will, the cover-ups, the fire. I carry the blood they tried to bleach, the strength they tried to bury, and I will not be silent. The crowd roared. Elijah's hand found hers, and in that moment, on that stage, she was no one's charity case. She was the future. But as the press scattered, as applause faded, a man approached from the crowd. Tall, clean suit, quiet power. He handed her a letter. My father asked me to give you this in case the truth ever came out. She opened it, and inside was a final bombshell. One line. The portrait above the fireplace was never Evelyn. It was Margaret. It always was. The whole house had bowed to a lie. But now, the truth was sitting in the throne. The Whitmore mansion had gone quiet. Not the silence of secrets, no, but the kind that comes after thunder, the kind that settles like peace. Weeks passed since the press conference. Evelyn vanished from public life, retired from every board. Her name scrubbed from the marble at the company entrance. She'd been seen once, leaving the estate alone, suitcase in hand, face bare. No pearls, no staff, no power. But my baby, she stayed. She reclaimed, and not just the office, not just the business. She reclaimed the story. She and Elijah commissioned new art for the estate, pieces by black artists from Atlanta and Birmingham. A gallery of legacy reimagined. No more oil portraits of plantation heirs. And right there, above the grand fireplace in the Whitmore parlor, a new portrait. Margaret, painted in emerald silk, just like before. But this time, her eyes looked proud, her smile subtle. And behind her, 2 children, one dark, one golden brown, a symbol, a rebirth. Charles came to see it once, quiet, regret heavy in his eyes. You did what I should have done. He whispered. She didn't answer, not because she was angry, but because he wasn't hers anymore. He tried to reach for her hand, but she pulled away gently. This house needed a woman who could rebuild it with open hands, not closed eyes. He left after that, didn't fight, didn't beg, just faded like all the men who never knew what to do with a woman who knew her worth. Elijah stayed, took his place, not as a symbol, not as a scandal, but as a rightful son. And every week he visited the small graveyard behind the estate, where Margaret's new headstone now stood. A stone that read, she was never lost, only hidden. And as for my girl, she didn't just run the empire. She reshaped it. The foundation grew. Scholarships for black girls, grants for black-owned businesses, internships for those the Whitmores once ignored. People called it radical. She called it justice. And Aunt Grace, I call it redemption in a silk dress, because they said she didn't belong in that house. But now, her portrait hangs in the golden frame beside Margaret's, head held high, crowned not by wealth, but by truth. And in the corner of that canvas, a quote she chose herself, legacy is not what you inherit, it's what you heal. So if you made it here, baby, after every wound, every silence, every door that slammed in her face, know this, you're not a charity case. You're not a guest. You're not a secret to be hidden. You are the story they never expected, but can't erase. If this story touched your heart like it touched mine, leave a word below. Aunt Grace is always here with stories for souls that been through the fire and came out shining.